What was banned at your school? Why? They banned messing with a cupboard in room 8 because of a student named Justin. So, classroom 8 had an old, very heavy cupboard in one corner. It's black and big, and it was also bolted to the wall and the floor for good measure. Also, someone enterprising had weighted it with a metal block in the bottom of the cupboard that must have weighed at least 500 pounds. That cupboard would have required a forklift to get it out of the room. It was going nowhere. But nobody was using it. It was completely empty, apart from the metal block, obviously. And Justin loved playing tricks on teachers with that cupboard. Some of his tricks: he put a phone in it with a ringtone of an ambulance rushing by. He called it like 10 times in one class. Everyone looked out of the window as if they were actually watching an ambulance rush by. The teacher got really annoyed. He hid in the cupboard before class, intending to come out when the teacher was doing attendance. The teacher forgot attendance. Justin spent the entire class, and it was a double class, inside the cupboard, only to come out when the school bell rang with a loud, "Finally, I got a bit cramped in there." After the spring holidays, all chairs and tables were removed from this classroom as they waxed the floor. One of the chairs was put on top of this cupboard. Justin grabbed a table, put a chair on it, and used that as a sort of staircase to get on the cupboard to sit on the chair. It resulted in a shouting match between him and the math teacher. "Get down now, Justin." "But sir, there's a chair here. Aren't chairs meant to be sat on?" "I said get down." He also rigged the doors with one of those fake cardboard things that shoot glitter. We call them poppers. A wire was attached to one door and a popper to the other. The doors had to be opened with a bit of force. They were a bit stuck, so whoever opened the doors next got rained on with glitter. He kept throwing bouncing balls at the middle side when the teacher was turned away. It made a satisfying sound I would describe as clang. He had a glass of milk in it. Like I said, nobody used it, so its smell slowly developed naturally. Eventually, the administration made it known that anyone messing with the cupboard in classroom 8 would receive a punishment that will be twice as harsh as the punishment usually handed out to people making similar mischief. Justin moved on to the light projector in room 13A. His grand trick was when he would project a giant snake onto the ceiling and none of the teachers noticed for an entire day. In retrospect, Justin was a bit of a jerk. Funny guy, though. Well, Justin could be a genius. Like, he's gotta be super duper bored, and that's why he does what he does, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have the time and the mind space to be that kind of mischief if he wasn't actually challenged at school with the schoolwork. Story 2. In elementary school, regular recess was banned because kids were basically getting very rough with each other under the guise of games like Chase the Flag. So the school decided to replace recess with organized recess, where you had set activities to choose from that certain teachers oversaw. Obviously, this didn't go over well and kids were upset. One fourth grader got their dad to use his printer to make shirts that said "Free Recess" in big black letters. We all planned to wear them on the same day and start a kid protest. On that very same day, however, one of my best friends told the class goofball, who later in life once got into a big fight for comparing his pregnant girlfriend to a movie character, the big class rumor, which was that this one kid kissed this girl in our class. But he went out at the beginning of recess and ran around in circles yelling this rumor at the top of his voice. This was at the same time that a bunch of smaller elementary school kids were walking around chanting "No organized recess" in matching shirts. Eventually, this super athletic kid who would go on to be a college sprinter caught up to the goofball, and they started arguing in the middle of a protest full of little kids. At this point, the teachers moved to break it up, but they underestimated the power of crowds and the confusion that teachers can cause. So everyone just scattered and ran in every direction. I saw kids run right off of school grounds, and I even saw one kid hide behind a dumpster. As the teachers tried to control this group of small children, the third grade teacher made a move to grab this kid. In response, some random kid, to this day I still don't know who it was, just charged at him. So at this point, we've got two fifth graders arguing, one teacher down, and 50 plus children running off in different directions. It took around 3 hours to restore order. Organized recess didn't last much longer after that. Story 3. In 2000, right out of college, I taught at a little private Christian school. When I say little, I mean it was K-8 with 8 kids in the 8th grade. There was a school uniform, but Fridays were dress-down days, which still had a dress code, but not actual uniforms. It wasn't as strict as many Christian schools I've heard about, but it was more strict than I was used to. One of the 8th graders was this gothy girl. Let's call her Amy. Amy loved to push the limits of the dress code every dress down Friday, and it resulted in numerous new rules just because of Amy. No joke, they would reprint the rulebook, or at least print and distribute the addenda everyone was supposed to insert into their rulebook until new ones could be printed. Being a kind of fundy Christian school, the administration didn't take too kindly to the goth style, so Amy would come in with black fishnet leggings. There's nothing in the dress code against that. New rule, no fishnet leggings. Then, instead of those, she'd come in with gothy makeup, black lipstick, black eyeliner, etc. There's nothing in the dress code against black makeup. New rule, no black lipstick or eyeliner. The next week, it was black nail polish. New rule, no black nail polish. On each dress down day, she never, to my recollection, actually had any disciplinary action taken against her. They just kept confronting her. She'd point out that she hadn't violated the dress code. They'd back down and rewrite the rules. She kept finding loophole after loophole like it was a weekly sport for her. My favorite was that toward the end of the school year, she got her mother to sew her a cape. Not a superhero cape, but a black on the outside, red velvet on the inside, Dracula-style cape. Between classes, she'd hold it out in front of her like Bela Lugosi as she made her way down the hall. The others kind of smirked, but when I saw her coming down the hall with her cape, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. When confronted about it, her response was, "Of course, there's nothing in the dress code against capes. New rule, no capes." Story 4. What wasn't banned at my school? First, it started with Magic the Gathering in our elementary school, then the entire district banned it, then they canceled Earth Day programs. After that, any kind of magic theme became suspicious. What happened? We had a class of special needs students in our school called the STAR class, and one semester the teachers thought it would brighten their schedule to teach the STAR students some magic tricks. The idea was that they'd learn how to do tricks, learn some self-study skills, and put on a magic show at the end of the year. They put up banners in the hallway to promote their progress. Halfway through the program, the banners disappeared. It turns out there was a very Christian family with kids in our public school. They had written the board with concerns over occultism being condoned by the school, as evidenced by the STAR class magic program. They were threatening to sue the school district over a breach of the separation of church and state. A hyper-evangelical newspaper from Kansas wrote about how our town was possessed with sin, and even our street signage surely pointed the way down. The real story? Their kids were little jerks. The son wanted to play Magic the Gathering with the other kids in school, but his parents disallowed him. He was so jealous that he couldn't play that he got his parents to sue the district. They forced the school to cancel Earth Day because it was rooted in pagan rituals. Magic of all forms was banned from the entire district, and even 5 years later, we were kicked out of the library for playing Magic the Gathering tabletop games after school. Story 5. In general, at my school, there were some Christian teachers who considered anime evil. Sailor Moon, Ranma, DBZ, and Pokemon, especially this, were particularly criticized. Some context, in Mexico, on national TV or open TV, Channel 5 is for quote-unquote kids, and in the 90s, they regularly aired anime. Channel 7 tried it too, so from 1 p.m. until 8 p.m., if I recall correctly. You could watch Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Ranma, Digimon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Quest, Candy, Sandy Bell, Mazinger Z, and a bunch more. They even brought in a psychologist to talk to us individually to persuade us not to watch those shows. Pokemon was the enemy. They considered it highly wicked. As in any normal school in my country, outside at the end of the day, there were 1 or 2 small entrepreneurs selling Pokemon cards or Dragon Ball Z stuff. The school made them remove their wares many times because they were selling quote-unquote devil stuff. They also pasted a commitment letter on the playground for everybody to sign, agreeing to stop watching anime. I didn't sign it, so the psychologist talked to me 3 times. They called my mother and she sent them to La Chingada. She gathered some other moms and fought back. The moms won because they really knew what the cartoons were about and the teachers didn't. The only one they considered inappropriate was Ranma. The scenes in Dragon Ball Z or Saint Seiya were okay though. Story 6. When I was in high school, we had permanent markers banned. Someone organized a game where everyone was given a target to hunt, and if you were successful, you inherited their target. It cost $1 to enter and the winner got the jackpot. We had around 150 students out of the 600 in the school participating. The objective was to mark your target by writing on them with a Sharpie, and they were then declared out. This could only be done in the hallway or the cafeteria, not in class or off campus. Well, our vice principal decided she wanted to participate, saying that if she won the money, she'd use it to buy something for the school. Fair enough, we thought, so we let her in. One of my friends ended up with her as a target, so in between classes one day, he snuck up behind her and made his best Sam Fisher impression, grabbing her and marking her with a Sharpie. Well, that was just too much emotional stress for our poor VP. She took his Sharpie, had him serve in an in school suspension, and forced us to discontinue the game. No more Sharpies could be used by students or staff, and no one knows what became of the prize money either. We kept it in a jar in our principal's office so no one could take it, so we all hated our VP even more than we did before. It sucks to see Sharpies banned of all things, but hey, it must have been a blast while it lasted. Now, if you're enjoying these stories about the most random things that get banned at school, please do show your support by liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Story 7. They banned meeting people while on out-of-town class trips because of me. In 1996 or 97, chat rooms were still in full swing, open 24/7, and I had met a cool guy from Pennsylvania about a year earlier. He was 25, socially awkward, but a big sweetheart, so we chatted like brother and sister. He actually spoke with my folks a few times too. So, on a high school art trip to Chicago, we decided to meet up, with my parents' blessing no less. Ah, the naivete of the early internet days. He drove from PA with a buddy, and we met in his room. I brought a friend for safety, but she left halfway through. I hung around a bit longer, and I was late getting back to the bus. Little did I know, everyone was freaking the hell out. Since I was late, my friend told the chaperones where I was. I got in so much trouble that I had to spend the night in the chaperone's room because they thought I might be a flight risk. The next school day, I got called to the principal's office to discuss the incident. Thankfully, I didn't get into any real trouble, and he informed me that the rules would be changing specifically because of me. Sadly, that was the only legacy I left at that school, as the rest of the time was spent being invisible. Story 8. I got candy banned in middle school. In 6th grade, I saved my candy from Halloween and sold it to people over the next week. I made about $20, so next time my mom went to Sam's, I bought a large box of Mars candy. I sold that. Those boxes were about $20, and you can make close to 40 from them. So every week I would save 20 and spend 20 on the candy for next week. Closer to the end of the year, I expanded and was selling a box of Ring Pops, a box of assorted Mars candy, and a box of Skittles every week or two or so. I finished the year with close to $500 in my savings account. I was homeschooled in 7th grade. My parents thought I could get ahead or something, and it was ridiculous. So I decided to go back to regular school in 8th grade. When I got back, I learned that in my absence the year before, everyone and their mom had tried to sell candy. It got so bad that the principal banned candy. I walked in the first week of 8th grade with a box of candy, and the first day someone told me it was banned. I finished selling that box over the next couple of weeks and then closed my first successful business due to excess regulation by the authorities. Story 9. Candy necklaces were a big deal at my middle school. One day, a couple of my friends entered the playground before school started, each wearing a candy necklace. Their arrival immediately caught everyone's attention. After we all demanded to know where they got them and how much they cost, from the corner shop down the street, and 10p as I recall, one or two others said they might go and get one for themselves before school started. That might go turned into them sprinting to the shop once one kid figured out how to use them as toys. Holding one piece of candy between their teeth, stretching forward the elastic, and it would catapult pieces of candy at whatever it was aimed at. That morning, a few kids bought a candy necklace each and played a game of firing bits at each other. The next morning, all 400 kids who attended that school were engaged in an all-out necklace war. Every single one of us must have had at least one of our own techniques for maximizing the firing rate. After doing our best recreation of trench battles all morning and having the kind of fun that only comes with an entire playground full of kids all playing the same game, we were all ushered into the assembly hall to be told that candy necklaces are now banned. Story 10. My entire school year was banned about a week before we would have broken up for exams. It had been brewing for a while. Fire alarms were being set off, people were signing shirts, we were told this wasn't allowed, and there were little pranks. Well, having been told, one more thing and there will be consequences, some people in my year went for it. They went to the local pet shop and bought loads of grasshoppers and beetles and then planted them around the school. I think there was a kipper behind a radiator somewhere. Well, chaos ensued. Critters fell from the kitchen ceiling, closing the food hall. Kids ran out of classrooms as grasshoppers claimed the space, and then the fire alarm went off. We were all called to the hall, and the head teacher said, "Leave. Do not come back unless you are sitting an exam. Your leavers service is canceled, but your ball, prom, will go ahead, but do not come to school unless you have an exam." Naturally, some of us went straight to the local press to tell them how unfair it was. Ironically, some of those in the picture were the ones that had been to the pet shop that morning. Story 11. In 8th grade, my friends and I were the so random types of kids. We liked shouting sausage biscuit a lot. Since it was a Christian school, they banned the phrase because they legitimately thought the phrase was code for something sinister and evil. It wasn't. We were just dumb, annoying kids. I stopped saying it after that, but our principal was constantly on guard. I remember a class outing to the local art museum where my buddy and I were talking while getting off the bus. I guess I said something that triggered the principal because he suddenly turned around, looked right in my face, and said, "Did you just say sausage biscuit?" In the most serious tone I've ever heard anyone say anything. No, because I honestly didn't. "Don't lie to me. If you say it again, I'm sending you back to the bus and you can sit out the rest of the trip." And that's how we traumatize a principal with something you can buy off the McDonald's dollar menu. This was like 15 years ago, but I still remember it because it's just so absurd. Story 12. Making an F shape with your hand. In middle school, some of my friends and I thought it'd be funny to make up a group and we called ourselves the Ferrets. Then, after a week or so, a lot more people joined and split off to form another group. We would talk trash and stuff, like about the Pokemon Go teams. Fast forward a month or two and the entire middle school was in on it. I started hearing random kids talking about their groups and throwing up random signs. I got called to the office after a little while and the principal recorded the conversation while he interrogated me. They tried to find everyone involved and made us meet in the gym. When we got there, it was full of about half the middle school. That wasn't nearly everyone. Teachers came out to talk to us and I got pegged as the leader of the Ferrets and some other kid got pegged as the leader of his group. During this lecture, our football coach came out to talk and was literally crying the whole time. The teachers all thought there were serious group wars. Story 13. Our class was the first to go through new mandatory financial literacy classes, and part of it was a stock market simulation. We began betting against the market when we set it up to crash specific stocks, and each time our money rose exponentially. We had to fill out paperwork for each trade, which ended up amounting to around 30 pages of trades. At this point, we had trillions. Our teacher was also very condescending about how great she was at the market. So we then bought huge percentages of her stocks and sold them pennies on the dollar to crash her stocks as well. After a while, she checked everyone's progress and found we were trillionaires. She went into a rage, even calling the company to see how we had cheated. They said we had short sold, which technically isn't cheating, but she still disqualified us from winning the class game and gave us Bs. Now there's a disclaimer before every class that says you'll automatically fail if you short sell. Story 14. I had this little Bible study group that would meet during lunch once a week. It grew in size really fast, so some of the parents of the kids started bringing homemade lunches to give to the kids that attended. Anyone was accepted to join. They never ran out of food and it was free, so kids who didn't have money or weren't on the food plan could eat something other than straight junk food. It was stuff like sandwiches and chips, but still better than the crappy cafeteria food. After a while, though, the group grew a little too big to the point where the school board found out about it and shut down the parents bringing lunches for the attendees because it was lowering the amount of kids buying from the cafeteria. It was freaking ridiculous. After that, they instituted a rule that parents couldn't bring lunches to kids anymore. The overall reasoning was it lowered the cafeteria profits. If you didn't have money or a lunch, you were out of luck. Dang, my school was never as interesting as all of these guys' schools. Now, if you also have your own bizarre school band story, please do share it with me in the comments below or click the next video. What's the dumbest thing you were punished for in school? And continue the fun. You won't believe what went down in story 2. I'll see you there, and thank you for watching this one.